Kamal Fernandez here from Kamal Fernandez Dog Training with my very good friend Kathy Santo for another weekly get-together that we have from her side of the pond and my side of the pond to talk about all things dogs, I should say, in this current climate of which is a bit strange and we're all dealing with globally. How is things in your side of the water, Kathy? How are you doing?
We're doing good. I mean, we're getting used to what is happening now,
Yep.
and
The
I
new
think
normal.
we're optimistic that it's going to change soon, and that the doors will be open, and then we can go back to what was normal.
Yep.
Maybe with a little provisions.
Yep.
But yeah, we're staying optimistic. But we hang out with dogs all day, so
Yeah, excellent. So, again, similar situation in the UK in that we are largely on lockdown, so we are limited about where we can move to and what we can do throughout the day. Nonetheless, there is always opportunities to make, hay whilst the sun shines, so to speak, and to be proactive in what you do, whether that be train your dogs. For me, I've been really, really busy around the house doing various tasks that I've been putting off for ages, so I have no excuses now. So I've been doing those. I've been training my dogs quite a lot, spending quality time with my family, which is always a bonus. Especially because I travel a lot for my work, so it's really nice to have that real intense time. This morning we were doing this random hide and seek game, so it's been I think I come in here for a rest more than anything really. But me and Kathy, what we've decided to do today, it was a request from somebody on one of my threads who asked to talk about multi-dog households. So both myself and Kathy, we have more than one dog in our home, and we have done that for a considerable amount of time. So, for probably the majority of our dog owning life, we have had more than one dog. And how we deal and prevent issues arising and things coming up that could be problematic, and being proactive in integrating our dogs into our family. So Kathy has a presentation that she has very kindly agreed to share with us, which I'm going to let her talk through, and then we're going to go over and discuss some things. And there's a couple of little clips from our own dogs. So Hottie, my border collie puppy, and Ray, Kathy's golden retriever puppy, of a little bit of dog-to-dog interaction, which could not have, for either puppy, played out better for them to have really, really valuable life lessons, but be perfectly safe and appropriate for where they're at in their growth and their development. So
this is a presentation that I give to my students, and my school in New Jersey is primarily like 98% pet dog people. So it's not a sport dog school at all. And for them, it's really puzzling because I know that they don't understand how to make the harmonious dog household that we know that they can have. So I put this slide together to show them that it is actually easier than they think it is.
Okay, cool.
So the first concept is preventing status-seeking aggression, and I call it "You Are God," which really means that you control everything in the household that the dogs want, to get them the idea that you control everything that they want. And then they don't have to go at each other to power play for things that are important to them. So again, one of the misconceptions that they typically have is that the dogs will just get on themselves. They'll figure it out, they'll sort their lives, and it's absolutely not true. You have to be in there to be the head of the CEO of this organization. And so good manners are a must. The sit for everything, using control commands, wait, place, here. And if you can't keep an eye on them, we tell them to separate or confine them, because the minute that you leave the room to get the mail or what you're doing and you hear growling and aggression in the other room, you've just missed an opportunity to supervise and protect the puppy or the dog who might have gotten a correction that is a little bit more strong than it should have been. So you just have to have your eyes on it. It's like kids, right? Oh, it's like kids.
Absolutely, yeah.
Controlling access to all resources, toys, freedom, foods, treats, blankets, beds, and maybe something that your dog considers a resource that is unique to them, like a pencil or a tissue. Because a lot of times dogs will fight over what we could consider stupid stuff. Like, it's just a paper towel. Yeah, but to them, it was really important for whatever reason. And so I think people are pretty good about bones, but I don't think that they hit any of these marks: freedom, food, treats, blankets, bed. I don't think they see it as a resource, and it most definitely is. This is one that we all should do, and I'm sure sport dog people do this: appropriate physical and mental exercise, because a tired dog is a calm dog. And I stress to my students that just taking your dog for a walk is not enough. There has to be training and engagement and play throughout that. You can't just stick them on the end of the leash and text as you're walking 4 or 5 blocks. It's not enough. Because what happens is they say, I take my dog for a walk and I still have issues. Well, it's because you haven't put the mental piece in, because that's the key: a physical and mentally tired dog. Oh, this can get hard when the numbers are up there. Spending individual time with each dog. And I am very about this, because I don't want my dogs to become a pack that has nothing to do with me, and they have their own little planet, and then I'm like the cabana boy. I feed them and I take them for walks and things like that. So one-on-one every single day, probably multiple times a day, I crank them up to get them really excited, and then ask for a sit or whatever level they're at. I train them individually, but I also will train them together, and I make sure that they're comfortable being separated from each other and from me. I had a student last week phone me, and we did a Skype lesson. And one of the issues was the dogs, when one was in the other room, would whine and bark and carry on. They couldn't even walk them separately. Come to find out, they're crating together. And so that's a problem. They sleep together in the same crate. They are litter mates, but that absolutely needs to stop so that they can learn to stand on their own. Except that life is not fair. Yeah. So I do not treat my dogs equally. And a good example of this is when you have a dog who's pushy and they want something, and like maybe your other dog grabs it away from them, and you're like, oh no, you shouldn't grab toys away from my dog. And you take the toy the dog grabbed and you give it back to the other one, because you feel like, oh, it's sad that they did that. But it's not true. There's definitely a hierarchy. And so if that's a lesson your other dog was teaching the one who took a toy, then you have to let that lesson ride. Because if you champion the underdog, you're going to make a problem for the dog who really is sort of running that whole thing. And then you're going to get bigger conflict down the line. So although when my puppy took a toy away from my older dog, I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. I did not go in and give the toy back to that older dog. I need to let that older dog give the message: either I'm not allowing that, or yeah, I'm okay with that, because it's something internal to them that you can't predict. Let's see. Yes, teach them to be flexible and patient by not always giving them what they want, and reward one dog for a down and wait while you're petting the other. And that's just teaching the dogs that some dogs can get things that they want while you have to do something that I've told you to do. It's just good manners. Be a calm and confident leader. Yeah, because you know what? When things are going sideways and you're yelling and being like, oh my God, stop it, it just cranks them up further. So fair, fun, and firm is a really good way to think of how I want people to be with their dogs. You set boundaries without intimidating them. I had a student who said, my dogs are really good when I pick up the spray bottle. I'm like, no, put it down. We're going to fix that without that. Being positive without being permissive. A lot of my students are like, yeah, I'm really into the pure positive stuff. But they let the dog jump on everybody because they don't want to make a correction. No, you have to have rules and boundaries. Don't respond to rude, pushy behavior. That's the dog who throws the toy in your lap all the time, and you keep throwing it because you're not really paying attention. I never do that, because that's not a good leader. And I also teach commands that help manage the group of dogs that I have, and those would be come, down, play, sit, basically everything a sport dog person would be already teaching, and then the duration involved with those commands as well. Signs of trouble, how to spot impending doom. And you would be surprised at how little pet people know about this and the way they misinterpret body language. So that's another whole class I give. It's a whole presentation on dog body language, what they're saying and how you misinterpret it to prevent fights and bites. Stress signals, and Kamal and I both have two good videos, and you're going to see it. Lookaways, meaning like I'd really rather you not engage with me. It's kind of the equivalent of somebody sitting too close to you and they keep looking at you and wanting to talk, and you just pick up your phone and start like pretending to text. That's kind of a look away. Blinking, you see the pace of it change. They're kind of squinting, blinking. Yawning is a stress signal, and stillness, which is interesting because I had a bite case a while back, and the dog had a toy, and the mom went to take it and got nailed. And she said to me, "But he was still." Like when kids wrestle, the one who's still means they give up. Like, I don't understand. And I'm like, it's a different species. Let me help you understand it. So yeah, stillness is definitely a stress signal. Pushy behaviors, glaring looks at each other. Yeah, like teenage girls across the room. Body blocks. And they could be so subtle and for no reason in your mind. But I saw it the other day. The puppy was getting a little pushy. And my older golden just sort of like walked across the room and apparently for no reason, but I knew what it was. He sort of hip checked her and she was like, okay, got it. Like you can go first. Targeting is when a dog is seeing something across the room that has nothing to do with them, but they're like, you know what, you've pissed me off most of the day, so now I'm going to teach you a lesson. It's sometimes, mostly it's unfair, and I really get on my dogs for doing this stuff. Play that's too rough, I interrupt that immediately as well. And stealing or hoarding, which the puppy started to do at a very young age. She took all the toys and brought them to her. Now, she had a little pile, and she wasn't getting aggressive at the other dogs when they would come close, but I know that could happen, and so I just don't allow it. The minute I see you make a toy pile, we're gonna stop that. Again, the resources, people, places, things, space, toys, bones, beds, doorways are a resource. And because they're narrow, you get a lot of conflict in a doorway. Either a dog wants to go through it, and there's a video on YouTube, it's cats and dogs, and it's about the cats using their presence to prevent dogs from going through doorways or upstairs. It's really interesting. The body language is awesome in that. Come on, maybe I'll find that for you and send you a link. Also, areas where there's food stored, like the pantry where the container or the bag of food is. Sometimes we get aggression there, and resource guarding. So you've got to be aware of where your stuff is and how your dogs feel about it to prevent this stuff from happening. Playtime red flags. So part of my school is a daycare, and that's for students only. And these are the things that we interrupt 100%. Dogs who are mounting each other or standing on each other's back or shoulders, coming up on the hind legs, neck biting, lack of bite inhibition, or unbalanced play. That'll guarantee you a timeout if you're a dog and some retraining into the social skills of dogs, because we have never, knock on wood, that's not wood, but I'm knocking, had a fight in all the years that we've been in business, and it's because we know what the red flags look like and we won't tolerate them. All right, how to handle a fight. And because one day it could happen to you and your pack, or when you're on a walk and your dog gets nailed by another dog, you need to know what to do. So we are big fans of air horns, and we know that they don't work 100% of the time, but we do see them working in a lot of cases. So it's a good thing to walk with, to have. And you know what? Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, oh, you can get an app for sounds. No, don't get the crappy air horn app, because by the time you unlock your phone and get to the app and open the app and launch it, it makes this sound. It's like me. It's like, it's not going to help you. Get an actual air horn. If you don't have one, make a loud noise. And I'm thinking, if you're in the house, you can throw some pot lids, you can overturn a chair, basically banging on the wall, something to startle them out of what they're doing. And by the way, something really hard to do is remaining calm, but yelling just makes them more hyper aroused, and you're now part of the issue. So don't yell. Just try to stay as calm as you can, and don't try to grab their collars. Now, everybody knows this. You can recite it back to me when we're having a normal conversation, but in the moment, people tend to do it even though they know not to, and you're going to get bitten. So please try not to do that. Wheelbarrowing them is when you just grab their back legs and you pull them away. There's other techniques as well that I know of, but these are the ones that I'm comfortable with recommending to people who may not be dog professionals.
Okay, so this is a little clip of me walking. I'm going to just pause it there. Taking Hottie out on one of our times that we can take our dogs out. We're still allowed to do that over here. What I tend to do with my puppies initially is, rather than obviously walk them with all my dogs, because that would be way too much for them, I take them out at the end of the walk. So my other dogs have been out and exercised, so they're going to have lower energy, and my puppy then gets to go for a little walk with the other dogs. As a rule of thumb, I generally will walk her with my two oldest dogs. So they are about 12 and a half, 13. They're older. Thriller, as you can see in this video, she has to have limited exercise. So she's sensitive about dogs in her personal space, which the puppy, you'll see, excuse me, is going to learn about. And her information to the puppy is really clear. And she gives the dog body language beforehand. Again, not making eye contact, she's sniffing the ground, she's not looking at the puppy. The puppy, being a puppy, saunters into her space, and you can see how mild and how appropriate the information Thriller gives to her. So I'm going to play it out and let you guys watch. So you can see there, she goes up to her, Thriller turns her head, no reaction, the puppy there scuttles back. So I'm going to just show you that again. Puppy goes, sees Thriller, saunters up to her, Thriller just turns, drops her head there, no contact, no vocalization, nothing, just lowers her head, not even a snap, and the puppy comes back to me and has learnt a really valuable lesson of giving Thriller appropriate space. Thriller, if I show you that again, okay, on the approach, Thriller is very much like not looking at the puppy, walking away, she's in her own little world, she's looking for the object that's on the floor, she wanted to have a sniff out of it, and the puppy, being the puppy, casually invaded her space. So she needs to understand, again, when this is base. Thriller is a dog that, you know, she has very clear boundaries. She doesn't like, she's not ever a dog that's liked other dogs lying on her and near her, etc. She's always been a very much, you know, likes to have her own bed, and she doesn't like any. Some of my other dogs are very much, they'll lie on each other or they'll share a bed. Thriller's very much not that person, and she let the puppy know that's not her way she rolls, so to speak. So, Kathy, you gonna show us your little video of Ray?
Yes, so I'm going to show you, let me share my screen. Okay, so this is...
Oh, it's a bit, that's it.
You got it? Okay. So this is the first drive-by. It's 3 seconds. And you can see this is Mookie. It's a friend's dog who's visiting. All right, you saw that? It's beautiful. He's like, you know what? Even though you're not thinking about what I'm doing, you're not bothering me, I just want to tell you that you're running around is super inappropriate and I'm unhappy with it. She's like, yeah, okay, whatever. All right, and so this is the second one where she's touching him with her foot. She's trying to play bow, and he does something really cool here. He's sniffing, right? Trying to say, look, I'm busy. It's like that texting thing we talked about, don't touch me. And she still is super interested in, probably because he has pants on. And he's like, I'm just going to go on the couch now. And she continues to sniff, and and he looks at her, and she's like, I don't get it. Well, she's about to get it here. So you can't see, but that's not the dog. Mookie is here on the floor where my little cursor is. And there's Elisa's dog, who's a white shepherd mix up here, which is interesting. When this happens, you'll see her sort of paw at the puppy, like, chill out. So Ray, my puppy, is going to make the mistake of putting her foot on Mookie's head. And you can see all the appeasement behaviors. She's like, she has no idea what to do with herself. She's like, oh my God, like, I don't know how to interact with you. Maybe I'll just go over here. Is that better? And Mookie's like, yeah, that's way better. I'll show that to you again. And I'll let the audio run just for that bit. And you can actually hear her squeak, and there's Summer with the foot, like, dude, just don't do it. And her hackles came up, and she was like, I don't know what to do. But again, like Kamal said, it's such an important lesson. she's going to be a golden retriever big dog. She cannot be jumping on little dogs' heads. She's going to hurt somebody. So, thankfully Mookie's a safe dog, and he wasn't over the top. I thought he was really lenient going into that. I would have predicted him nailing her a lot quicker than that, but he hit the end of his rope and he said, we're done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's both of those are great examples of dogs making just the right amount of correction, for want of a better term, on the puppies, for their puppy to learn a really valuable lesson about personal space. And you can't go clambering up to people, and you can't put your paw on their head if they say to you, no, leave me alone. The little Chihuahua gave really good body language before that. Thriller was very much like averting eye contact, sniffing the floor, giving Hottie very much no reason to come over there and invade her personal space. When you're living with multiple dog households, it's really important that you allow your puppy to have those experiences and those life lessons, which often people are either apprehensive about allowing to happen, or they intervene and correct the older dog. There is some things that we cannot teach other dogs. They need to learn for themselves. That isn't to me to say I'm going to just carte blanche let my puppy mix with dogs I don't know. Obviously, Kathy knows that little dog very well. I know Thriller incredibly well. I know her enough to know she's not going to be excessive. She's not going to be forceful. She's not going to damage or hurt or injure the puppy. All of that is criteria for me allowing things to play out. And that's a really important part of the puppy becoming part of my pack of dogs and my home and my family, where she can integrate with everybody and not have any issues. Or hopefully not develop long-term behavioural issues.
It's interesting. Mookie's never going to change his mind about her putting her feet on his body, right? And so he, in 22 seconds, can give her a lesson that she holds on to for life with him. And it's interesting that your dog can teach a puppy not to jump in that short of time, but people struggle with their dogs jumping up and doing naughty behaviors because they're inconsistent. Because I can promise you that Mookie's never going to have a day where he's like, oh, come on, Ray, I had a bad day at work. Like, you can jump on me and give a mixed signal. That's why dogs to dogs communication is so clear, because they set a rule and they follow through on it, unlike people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same with Thriller. Thriller is very militant about, I don't like people in my personal space. End of discussion. Nobody's allowed. Everybody knows the rules. The puppy clearly doesn't. And she's very, very black and white about that. She's not excessive. She's not extreme. She's very much like, no, I don't want people to... I don't do bed sharing. I don't do, people lying on me, etc., etc. And my other dogs, some other dogs that I have absolutely no. They quite like the tactile contact that they make with each other, and they'll all, as I say, clamber into one bed or be in the crate together. A lot of dogs don't. So that's something that that Hottie's learned and Ray's learned. When you have multiple dogs, it is knowing each dog's personality and being respectful and mindful of them as individuals, but then finding them a way for which all of them to exist and coexist without having issues and conflict, etc. I have a group of dogs that are of mixed personality, mixed size, mixed breed. That can sometimes take a little bit more time to mesh everybody together, because my boxer doesn't engage with other dogs like he engages with dogs like a boxer. Well, to my German Spitz, that was like his life was going to come to a grinding halt. He needs to understand that boxers, my Spitz needed to teach my boxer that you don't put your paw on my head and you don't try and roughhouse me to get me to interact. The ironic thing is those two are really, really close now. When he was a puppy, Sonic definitely had some very clear boundaries, and that was something, again, that they've both now come through and they have a very, very tight bond. But it's knowing your dogs well enough to do so, and when you have multiple dogs in a home, I would suggest initially being very, very cautious about having different spaces up so that the dogs can move away from each other, having your puppy crated, having your older dogs loose, and then vice versa, so that they can all gel together over time. Don't force the issue, and as long as you allow that process to take place and do so progressively and systematically, you should be able to incorporate any dog into your home without any issues.
It's interesting that the last 2 weeks have been different, obviously, for me, schedule-wise, and the training that I had been doing, it was a little bit less. It's come back now, but, and what was interesting was I would be at school, and my husband would let Val, my border collie, who's a year and a half, out to play with Dash and the frisbee and all of that. And when I took him out to train yesterday, he was like, "Yeah, this is okay, but yeah, I want to go back to my friends." And I'm like, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
So the rule has to be for some dogs that you have to find the value in me more than everybody else. And so all of that playtime and all of that hanging out with Dash and the frisbee and my husband gave him the idea that that was something he'd probably rather do than healing or anything else.
Yeah.
So I've changed that.
Yeah, yeah.
Starting yesterday, I'm like, oh no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
So Val is with me, and he's getting out multiple times, and we're training together. But he's getting a little bit, a lot less of his buddies in the house.
Yeah.
Until he remembers the value that's in me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing you have to constantly balance when you live in a multi-dog household of, yes, you want them to get on, yes, you want them to be coexist with no issues, but you also want them to largely focus on you. So, I walk all my dogs together. I want everybody to come back when I want them to, and to focus on me and ignore the other dogs, so that I can always have control over them as a collective. When you again, as Kathy's going back to Kathy's presentation, there are times when that can become more challenging. So hormones is always a big trigger for aggression and potentially behavioural issues. So when you suspect either, for example, with my female dogs are during season, I'm always more vigilant about my dogs around the home. When there's circumstances around the home where they're likely to be more aroused, for example, getting ready to go for a walk or getting food ready, I've taught them and trained them to be a lot more calmer, and I've set that tone so that they understand not to be headless and over aroused, and that's likely to be a trigger point. It's being proactive and being vigilant to things that could go wrong, and making sure that those don't develop into long-term concerns. I've had it where two dogs, because of hormones, I had a point where those two particular dogs, both entire males, had real tension in the home, and it was absolutely resolvable. They get on great now, but it took a lot of work. It took me initially separating them. They were both chemically castrated. It was quite a long, drawn-out process. However, and I had to really work at it, but it absolutely is possible. If you've had issues where two dogs don't get on, to reintegrate them, but you need to take your time and not force the process, and be really, again, the big thing is to make sure that overall you have control over each dog as an individual. So all my dogs understand individual behaviours, and they understand how to operate as a collective. So that's really, really important to having multi-dog households and living in, hopefully, harmony.
And I think, to your point, the whole idea of this is you have to create harmony. It doesn't just happen. Like, if you believe in teaching a sit or a retrieve or a recall, then you believe in teaching harmony, because it's not something they come to the table with. They have their own agendas. And in the pet community, typically I'll hear people who are getting their dogs excited, like, oh, who wants to go for a walk? Want to go for a walk? Who wants to eat? Right? And so they do this thing, and they get the dog like way up there. And so then there's conflict when there's more than one dog in the house, because everybody's over aroused, everybody's acting like lunatics, and bad things happen. So you need to teach harmony, and individually and as well as a group.
And again, put the time in. So, like, bringing another dog into a home. I have dogs in my home quite regularly, or different dogs, because of what I do. So my dogs are very, very comfortable with new dogs coming into my home. But again, I always allow a 24 to 48 hour window where there's no dog-to-dog interaction with new dogs coming in. So I allow, the new dog to get comfortable in my home, and my other dogs to know that the other dog is around via gates and dividers, etc., and crates, so they can know the other dogs, they can interact with them in a safe manner, nobody's going to be harmed. And within 24 to 48 hours, everybody's happy in there, because my dogs, as I say, are very well versed in it. I apply that same rule when I bring a puppy into the home. Initially, I don't allow my puppies to mix with my older dogs until everybody knows that they've sensed, the puppy's here, they've smelt where the puppy's been, or where the puppy's going to the toilet, or, where my older dogs are, and I'll let my puppy go where my older dogs sleep and sniff around the beds, etc. So they're getting a sense of the other dogs being present without any harm coming towards them. And then once they've done that, I then allow them to interact with each dog individually initially, and then progress, and then I have more dogs together at one point. So again, I start with my older dogs, because I want my younger dogs to learn that The other dogs have to be respected, and also that other dogs aren't going to be a source of constant interaction and euphoria. So I wouldn't integrate with my puppy and with, say, for example, Hottie and Jungle at the moment, because Jungle's 7 months old and all she want to do is run around headlessly, and that's not something that I want Hottie to be rehearsing, not only from a safety point of view but from a relationship point of view as well. I know that they're going to get on great. They're going to be absolutely best of buddies. So that is the least of my concerns at this point. It's more important that my older dogs go, oh yeah, a puppy, great, we're happy, and the puppy learns valuable lessons.
Right. And I mean, again, you're doing this in a very step-by-step method. And I think you demystify the whole multiple dog household for the puppy when you let them have access to the beds, to the toys, to see it through gates. Because the other way that I know people try to do it is they don't let their dog get together with their puppy at all for like a long time.
Yeah.
And the puppy is just like, I got to get to it. I got to get to it. It makes it bigger than it is. And so that initial meeting becomes just something that's way, way overblown. So I'm a fan of the idea that I want my dogs to like my puppy. So if I were to let the puppy jump on their heads and pull on their ears and take their toys, not only would the puppy get overcorrected all day long, but also the dog initially would say, you know what, you're a jerk. Like, I don't like you. So I try to make it in the beginning so that the older dogs say, hey, that puppy's pretty cool. Like, every time I go near the X-Pen, Mom gives me a cookie. And, so it's almost like when you have a second child, and some people, maybe me, get the established child a present. Like, now you're a big brother. Here's, like, whatever I got him. I think a play set outside. And so he was excited about Elisa becoming a sibling. And so when the older dogs were by Ray's X-Pen, I would give them cookies. And they would be like, it's amazing. If you go by this thing, you get extra food. I guess this thing is not so bad.
Great.
So I'm always working that angle to make sure that they understand this is a good thing.
Yeah, and the thing to think about with, it's like everything, you have to constantly work at these things. You have to reward good behaviour. Yes, some dogs will naturally form an affinity and they largely find their interactions reinforcing. Others, you have to work at it. I know there's dogs within my household that I have to constantly be mindful of and observe their interactions, again, be vigilant all the time. But generally speaking, as I say, my dogs all, get on really, really great. But I don't take it for granted, and I consistently work at it with them and throughout varying points throughout their lives.
Yeah, it's a job. I mean, if you're going to have multiple dogs, you have to be committed to the idea of multiple dogs.
Yeah, cool.
And it's through the harmony that you want to create for your household as well as the training. Because those two things go hand in hand. You just can't have good management. You have to have training backing it all up.
Absolutely. So manage, train, and obviously keep vigilant and working at your relationship with your dogs, not only as an individual, but as a collective. Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. I think we've covered quite a lot of information there. Hopefully it's been helpful for those of you that are either living with multiple dogs or considering getting another dog to add to your family. This has been a discussion that Kathy and I have been, very passionate about, because we have been multiple dog owners for a considerable amount of time. We hope that you've gleaned from our experience and our comments and insight. Again, put some feedback on the comments below and we'll pick it up if there's any questions. But for now, from myself, from Kathy, best of luck and enjoy your dogs.
Bye, guys.